Hey, everybody, welcome to Sex is Medicine. I am your host, Devi Erickson, here with you once again for another juicy and enriching conversation about sexuality, spirituality, pleasure, and personal growth. And I'm just going to remind you once again that we are coming towards the end of October, and little Davy Doodlebug and Sex is Medicine is taking a break for the winter. So we're going to go offline for November, December, and into 2022. We will be back in 2022 with all kinds of awesome new content for you. In the meantime, you can catch up on all those 200 episodes that you may have missed. Here with me today is Kristopher Lovestone. And I made Kristopher work kind of hard to get this interview. One of our last ones for 2021 had some questions for him about his work, and it is really powerful and necessary work for all of us to know about. So I'm delighted to share his message with all of us, all of you and me too. A little bit about Kristopher Lovestone, which is an amazing name, by the way. Kristopher Lovestone, that is like if you're going to be a sex educator, that's kind of like the name to have. So Kristopher Lovestone is described as the Einstein of relationships, and he's an ingenious certified sex educator who is breaking new ground in sex education for men and couples. After surviving 6 divorces during his childhood, he went on to rewrite the rules of the relationship game so that people can actually win. Yes, thank you. His ingenious and practical approach transforms people's ability to get what they really want in their long-term relationship. Through state-of-the-art communication tools, cutting-edge sex and intimacy education, and innovative relational strategies, he empowers people to exit relationship exhaustion and cultivate the intimacy of their dreams with their partner. And to help us all in this endeavor, I know that's pretty... Who writes your bios? And to support us all with this, he's recently published a new book called Conscious Cock. Again, love that title. And we're going to dive into the explanation of what that book is about and why and how it can help support all of us in having healthy, long-term, sustainable relationships. So thank you, Kristopher Lovestone, for...
Amen.
Woo, woo, woo.
Hey, women. Hey, God. Hey, goddess. That was the most amazing introduction. Thank you, Davey. I'm so happy to be here. You know, these are uncommon conversations that we're having, not for you, because you've got 200 episodes on a podcast, but for most people, This isn't stuff that we normally talk about. So thank you for inviting me on the show. Thank you for being rigorous about seeing whether or not I'd be a good fit with my message. I really appreciate that. And being able to discuss this for other people helps them to be able to discuss it in their lives, right? It normalizes these types of conversations, these types of thoughts and feelings that we don't see in popular media.
Well, yeah, and it's so necessary because these are normal issues that we all deal with, and we're kind of left out, you know, in the wild to try and figure it out on our own, and, you know, perpetuating trauma and all sorts of stuff. So it's wonderful to have some guides on our journey of healing and reclamation of our love and our joy. So where did this journey begin for you? You survived 6 divorces. And as we know from early childhood trauma, adverse childhood experiences, 1 divorce is bad enough, much less 6. So how did all this start for you?
Oh, feminism. My mom, single parent, getting pregnant in college in the 70s. Wow. Didn't want to have an abortion. What was she going to do? She wanted to have her child. She, like, it lit her up inside. Just, it was her personal thing. Like, oh my God, she was so clear. Mm-hmm. So she was going to come hell or high water. She was going to do anything it took to have me and raise me as safely as possible. But that didn't turn out to be easy. Yeah. Vietnam vets were the kind of guys that she got into relationships with. That was the man of the era back then. And they had so much trauma. Yes. So anyway, she ended up having one relationship after another, and they'd be about 3 or 4 years long. Then they'd break. And usually it was because of cheating. Always was because of abuse and fighting. And I just would see them. I lived this trauma, the emotional abuse, the financial abuse, the verbal abuse, the physical abuse. And it was just acid to my heart. Like I just knew in my soul that there was something better out there. There's gotta be, otherwise this world sucks. Mm-hmm. Screw it. I don't want to be in this life. I just saw how people could just have the best desires and intentions for relationship success, for emotional, fulfilling connection, but then just ships would pass in the night. They'd both be stuck in their stories and unable to see that there's some sense in what the other person was saying, some sense in the other person's perspective. They just couldn't get beyond themselves. So I started escaping by reading
Mm.
science fiction.
Wow. Hey, me too. I'm a big
It was
science.
my way out.
Yep. Yep.
Read my mind. Thank God, because my life was really kind of a prison. And I started thinking, oh, maybe there could be other ways that I don't see around me. Thank the Lord. So as an adult, I just kind of devoted my life to searching for this diamond in the rough that I didn't see around me. It wasn't in popular media. It wasn't in Hollywood. I didn't see any friends or family or nobody in my community. Nobody was doing what I considered a healthy, hot relationship. It was just all cheating, lying, betrayal, trauma. And but I kept searching. I went to the library at 13 trying to find a book on sex to ask myself the question, is masturbation okay? Is this okay? Let me learn about it. Am I going to hurt myself if I do this too much? Like, I couldn't find the information.
Yeah.
So 30 years later, let's say, I finally succeeded in my own life at having a system, literally a system that works in relationship between a man and a woman. That's what I focus on, is heterosexual relationships. And then I see all these guys out there that are struggling. They can't make it work. They're trying, and they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
Feminism has emasculated them, put their dick and their power in a box and said, we don't want that. That's bad. You're the cause of all the problems in the world. But then at the same time, there's all these women doing self-empowerment work who are saying, I want an empowered man too. Where's all the guys doing empowerment work? Well, male empowerment, that's almost a dirty word.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ooh, anyway, so I was like, I got to help these guys. I had to help myself up. It was hard by my bootstrap year after year. And I finally figured out a way. Let me ease it for the next guy. Try on what I'm doing. Try it on for size. See if it works for you. If it doesn't, fine. This isn't gospel, but it is a system that does work for me. It is a roadmap that is functional.
So what are some of the hallmarks of this roadmap? I don't want you to give your system away for free, because that's what's in your book, but give us an idea of what this system is. How did it come about? Was it just kind of like trial and error, or did you read a lot of self-help books? Like, how did this all occur?
A life of reading books on the topics of intimacy, which is relationship skills, on the topics of communication, how to actually get your meaning across to another person, and how to elicit their meaning that they're trying to communicate to you, maybe in broken words, incomplete paragraphs, and then also modern sex ed, not sex ed from when I was in high school. I'm 47 years old, which was all about just say no to drugs and sex. Just, don't get an STI and don't get pregnant. Well, hello, what about the pleasure centers of our bodies? Can't even talk about pleasure in public school systems. It's literally against the rules. Yeah. Really? 8,000, 10,000 nerve endings in this little spot called the clitoris? Oh my God. And it's not just the spot. Now we know there's this whole internal structure to the clitoris. And if guys don't know that, if they don't have an actual modern roadmap, if they're trying to use a roadmap from the 1900s, good luck in the modern world. Life is more complex. Women are more complex. They're more empowered. Like, you got to meet their hearts and their minds and their bodies. Anyway, so I'm a good teacher. I went to School of Education to become a teacher. I'm good at developing curriculum and instruction. So I just said, if I want to take a guy from where I was and get him to where I'm at, like, what do I need him to learn along the way? And it just turned out to be 5 things. Number 1 is installing some upgrades to how we think, our beliefs. We got to change some of our goddamn perspectives. Grandpa's perspectives don't work in 2021. And then understanding your partner. Guys don't really understand women. Women can be confusing. Guys can just throw up their hands and say, I'm done. I don't fucking know what to do. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. Let's change that. You can understand women. Absolutely. They're not rocket science. Then after that, some sex education, modern sex education, section number 3. Learn about the internal hotspots that we know about inside the female genitalia that we didn't know about 20 years ago, because male doctors never mapped the internal neural structures in female genitals. They never did it until 20 years ago. It's brand new information. Then after that, number 4, intimacy tools, how to stoke the fire of your relationship. You have to have some tools for keeping your relationship hot. I only teach about long-term relationship success. I don't give a shit about pickup. I don't care about dating. No, 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 no. If you want long-term success, hot, juicy, getting your erotic dreams and bucket list items, achieved in your relationship with somebody long-term, that's what I teach. But you got to have tools for that. You got to keep it hot because things change. We change, we dwindle, our appetites change. And then the last thing I teach is actual sex technique, which is what all the guys want to know. How do I last longer in bed? Like, well, I'll teach you that, but you got to learn this stuff first. Otherwise, you don't really have the quality and the character to wield these high-powered tools. Anyway, so that 5-pronged system really takes the guy from here to here in like a very short period of time. High power, high impact things that you don't have to practice for 20 years to master.
So, a question for you: a lot of the dysfunction that I believe that I see that we experience in relationships is a result of often our early childhood trauma. So that you described early childhood trauma as like so much like that, and like taking off the table genetic, historical, like just getting rid of all the other types of trauma. Just our childhood trauma, just growing up in a home of domestic violence, suffering through divorce, poverty, all as many of the issues that plague us as little children, infant male circumcision, massive trauma. So how does your system account for that in terms of relationship dynamics? Because very often when we're having these screaming, matching, and yelling fights, it's just our traumas rubbing up against each other and us in our fight or flight response. So do you address that in your system, or how do you address it in your system if you do?
Okay. Number one, I'm not a therapist. I'm a counselor, I'm a coach, I'm a teacher. But I didn't go through to get my master's degree in this. So if there's a level of dysfunction or abuse or trauma that's happening in your world, like you need help.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, this is a self-help book.
Yes.
That's all this is. All right. This is awesome for the people that aren't experiencing abuse and trauma right now. But I would say the majority of us have, or all of us have in this human existence experienced some sort of trauma in our upbringings, right? So we're all these kind of like broken people interfacing with all these other broken people, or it's all of these little children interfacing with all these other little children. How do we address that? So my system is not complicated. Mm-hmm. It's about learning communication tools to be able to get difficult truths out there in the best way possible. Now, what I mean by that is in a way that has the highest likelihood of it going well. We increase our chances of success by learning how to give a handle to hold on to. We preface, we set the frame, we do our own internal work of understanding what's really going on inside of us. And then we can communicate that reality in such a way that it hopefully won't trigger them to run away or have a temper tantrum or break up with us or something like that. And also to tease out of our partner their truth, what's going on in them. Because a lot of guys, they'll ask their woman, what do you want? And she goes, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe she's never been asked in her life. Maybe like she's been so drowned out by her mom and her pop, like just do what you're told. Don't have your own opinion. Just do the damn chores, like be a good student, like be a nice girl, like all that crap that maybe she's never had space to, or never had anybody empower her voice and her choice in her life. So it's a tremendous opportunity in relationship where you can empower your partner for that sense of opening up and blossoming, maybe for the first time in their entire lives. Anyway, it's about these communication tools that we should be taught in grade school.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Communication is the foundation of cultivating a container of trust and safety in a relationship. And it doesn't matter like how good your sex skills are. If I, as a cisgender woman, do not feel safe in your presence, I'm not going to be able to relax fully into my bliss, fully into my orgasm. So setting the stage, setting the groundwork for having healthy, constructive communication. And then also what I'm hearing is like, your focus in your work isn't really on like, short-term relationships and dating. Your focus in your work is relationship sustainability. And I would say that's a unique perspective in this field. There's a lot of conversation about polyamory. There's a lot of conversation about dating. There's a lot of conversations about, different sexual orientations, but this whole like monogamous, cis heterosexual, white, relationship, having healthy relationships in that demographic that very often gets overlooked. And yet it is a demographic that like, if we aren't if all of us as humans are not in healthy supportive relationships, then that wound and that poison is going to influence our society at large. So I just want to praise and support your courage.
Oh, well, thank you. But I do want to
stepping out and waving this flag.
Yeah, well, look at me going traditional here. Long-term relationships.
But it is, because there's a lot of there's
I don't know.
A lot of shade that
do we want to grow old alone?
Yes.
We age, we change. I think that I think most people want to have their current desires fulfilled and want to have a pathway towards getting their future desires fulfilled also. And I don't think that's swimming in the waters of singledom forever for most people. That gets immediate sexual satisfaction and variety needs met. Absolutely. But you can have that. That's fine. But if you want a long-term relationship with a person, you got to invest in that person. And that means learning how to dance with that person. And I just want to take issue with one thing. Like you mentioned, that I'm white and I teach white people. Well, I don't think that I teach white people. I'm talking to the core of humanity. I don't care what your religious background is or what community you were brought up in or this tone of your skin color. Pain is universal. Like relationships are universal. We're born into this world and we die and we have relationships along the way. We want to touch and be touched. We're social organisms. Absolutely. So, I feel, and I may have blind spots. And if you see I have a blind spot, I'm welcome to hear it. Like, call me out. It's okay. But I think these are universal truths. Anyway, so if we can heal our ability to relate with one person, that revolutionizes the whole planet. That revolutionizes our local community, all the layers that are from our relationship with ourselves to our close inner circle, to our family, to our community, to the state that we live in, to the country, to the world at large. Like all these layers become affected.
Absolutely. And that is why the healing of our intimate relationships is such a focal point, and has actually been a focal point in some Eastern traditions as well. And in terms of, I want to hear and support that your message is for humanity. And what my orientation is as a person of color, there are certain stressors and traumas that are specific to being Black in America that you will not be able to relate to at all ever. And there are certain causes and conditions in place, certain things that I'm going to have to work on and heal. So when you say women, this is the way women are. Well, as a Black woman, my experience of life is very, very different than a white, middle-class, heterosexual woman growing up in Iowa, so to speak. My experience is very, very different. And my experience is impacted and affected by my genetics and by my skin color and by my appearance. So when I say, referring to you, speaking to, cishet white men, yes, of course, your message is universal, but there's specific things that occur in the dynamics of white people that are different than in the dynamics of Black people. And this is very, very salient. I'm in an interracial relationship. My husband's white. So there's stuff that comes up for me in ways of expressing myself that for him, he absorbs in a different way. And there's things about his orientation and his view that I'm like, I'm Black. I don't think that way. Like that's not even on my radar. So I think that I always want to account for the fact that when we're talking about universal humans, we're also talking about individuated and individual and unique experiences that unfortunately today are based on race. That is a fact, that it's an inescapable fact. I can't escape it as a person of color, and we can't escape it as a society. So
yeah,
that's what I mean by
absolutely. I completely agree with you. We could say that I believe, Kristopher Lovestone, I believe that these are universal truths from my limited perspective, right? My perspective is what I've grown up, what I've seen, what I've lived in, and what I've experienced. And I'm just going to acknowledge it. Yeah, I'm going to have blind spots. I'm going to have programming that I don't know about. Now I make a practice to try to find my blind spots. I try to find common ground, but still, yeah, what do we do? Anyway, I think you've got good resource there for putting a book out, Devi, about crossing the cultural barrier in your own intimate long-term relationship.
Yeah.
There's not much there on that. How do you keep it hot and amazing and engaged when you're an evolving human being? Yeah. And there's cultural differences to thought patterns, communication patterns, and stuff like that. That is rich soil.
Yeah, it really is. And so it's circling back to your work. So the foundation of what you do is, it sounds like the foundation, or at least the building block, is really on communication, which is a skill that we are not taught. I practice nonviolent communication, and I was horrified when I first started. It's like, how do we not know this? How are we not given these skills growing up? Then the second piece is understanding women. So what does that mean in terms of the work that you do? How do you help men understand women?
Well, there's a lot of things that I talk about there. It's a whole section of the book. Let me just look at it really quickly. There's a thing that I've identified. Number one here, understanding her point of view. That guys tend to believe that their point of view is more valid than hers.
Yes. See,
I call that universal.
Yes.
Okay. And I gender it. I think men have that point of view about women. I think that he thinks he's more logical. He's got things figured out. She's less rash. She's irrational. And he doesn't believe that like her point of view is as valid. And I'm like, no, we got to take issue with that shit. Her point of view is just as damn valid as yours. She has her own path of experience in her life. She's gone through her own evolution, and she handles things differently than you do. Mm-hmm. It is not less valid. So if guys can downshift that program that they've got running in their heads and actually listen to the reality of what she's saying and try to imagine it from her experience of her life, he's probably going to get enriched. Now, he still might have his point of view and still believe it. Yes. Understanding, being able to see something from her point of view enriches us. It makes us less unilateral. Yeah. More capacious. We have more capacity. We're more tools in our toolkit. It expands the way we can see things, which is much better than just thinking we're right.
Yeah. And so that right there is so deep to me, what you just said about that there is it's a culturally conditioned underlying belief that because you have a penis, your viewpoint and your orientation to life is more valid than mine. And that is an undercurrent to almost every interaction between heterosexual men and women. That is so fucking profound right there. Like that's
Let's put that in the crosshairs and blast that shit to smithereens. Let's destroy that shit. Like, name it. And then once it's named, you can't hide from it anymore.
But like, so that's the thing though, because that operates in very, very subtle ways. So what do we do as women, when we're in interactions with men and we can see that shit, we can see that like, oh, okay, you just think that your view is better than my view. What do we do in that moment? Because very often, if you already think that your view is better than my view, then if I point that out to you, you're going to dismiss me.
Yep. I don't have a cure for a jerk. Okay, I don't. Like if there's an arrogant bastard, I can't work with that person. Yeah. They're a closed wall. So I just want to acknowledge that exists in the world. And if the person you're talking to is an arrogant jerk, I don't see any hope for that. Yeah. So I just call it straight and say there's no crack to let light in. But if we can teach the skills of shifting to curiosity as our de facto mode of being, rather than I know everything. No, let's shift into curiosity. That is the cure for chauvinism right there. That is the cure for machismo. It's like, no, I don't know it all. I don't know how to make you come. I don't know how to please you the best. Like, no, you're an evolving creature. You're different today than you were yesterday. Like, let me shift into curiosity, acknowledge that I'm not the best in the world and not need that to be my ego identity, that I'm the fucking man, right? And shift into curiosity. How are things now? What can I learn? How can I sharpen my tools and add more amazing tools to my toolkit? And the thing is, if you practice that, then over time, you become masterful. You're not the jerk who thinks he knows the best way, but actually only has a couple dull tools in his toolkit. No, you're the master who has hundreds of sharp tools and is able to choose which one he wants to wield in any moment. That is relationship mastery. And that's what I'm trying to get people to move towards, is course correcting to move towards relationship mastery.
Yeah. So I'm hearing as you're speaking, I'm hearing and sensing like a de-armoring and a softening. So there's so much in the society that teaches men, cisgender men, that they have to be the certain way. They have to be strong and powerful, and they have to know everything, and they have to have it handled. And in my work, I talk about something called the Walt Disney syndrome, which is kind of the opposite of that for cisgender women, which is like, oh, we just have to lay there, and he's going to kiss us, and he's going to know exactly how to touch us. But the guys know that story. The guys show up and they're like, okay, I'm supposed to know how to touch her and kiss her, and I'm not supposed to ask any questions. So it sets up this dynamic of failure and dissatisfaction for everybody. So what I'm hearing from you is accepting that as a man, that it's healthy masculinity to accept that we don't know. You don't know. And also to this attitude of curiosity, as opposed to having to have it all under control, a curiosity and exploration. Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, I do want to make a point that I'm not saying not to be strong and powerful.
Yeah.
No, I am absolutely encouraging men to foster curiosity and then bring their power to bear.
Yeah.
With accurate information. Don't like have my blinders on thinking you're some way that you're actually not, and then try to be powerful, then be strong and powerful from that point. No. Actually connect to the reality of where you are and be strong and powerful in that presence. That's amazing. Like, okay, when in my experience in heterosexual relationships with all the people that I've talked with and worked with over the years, like when a woman feels, this is another thing I talk about in understanding women, when a woman feels like he really understands the totality of her, the storms, the sunny days, like the complete spectrum of her, when she feels like he accepts her body in its entirety, in the reality of it, and this includes her period, if she's pre-menopausal, before menopause, and not having a period afterwards, and the change in hormones that occurs, if she really feels like he accepts all of her and loves her, there is a deep relaxation.
Yes.
What we're talking about is what you talked about earlier in the episode, is building trust. If we focus, all these tools are about building trust, real trust, a landscape of safety, a playground that you're safe to play in. And then we de-armor naturally because the person knows who we are, loves us, gets us, and we're not having to pretend that we're something other than we are in order to get that person's love or attention or affection or whatever we need. We have a relationship of two real people then. So strength in reality is amazing. Strength when you're an actor playing a part, that's kind of bullshit.
Yeah, it's a difference between healthy strength, right, and the egoic. I can't think of the exact term, but there's a term in human developmental trauma that's like it's basically an egoic coping mechanism. I have a wound that I'm not worthy enough, so therefore I have to project arrogance and worthiness all over the place, as opposed to being in touch with that wound and healing the wound, and then emanating with true confidence and true worthiness, as opposed to this armoring that we're describing. So yeah, beautiful. So I hear that it's not like you're encouraging men to be weak. You're encouraging men to be healthy, to have a healthy, rooted sense of self, and be strong in a way that is empathic and connected at the same time.
Wow, that's a great way to say it. I'm going to quote you on that. That's awesome. I would never say it that way. It's wonderful to have a fresh perspective. I would say that, I am empowering guys to actually connect to the reality of the woman that he's in relationship with, not with who he wants to be in relationship with or who he thinks he's in relationship, but actually getting into the day-to-day reality of who he's with, her shifting tides, her changing propensities. We don't want what we wanted 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago. We evolve and we change. We all do. Guys tend to think, oh, we're men, we're guys, like we're always the same. And that's not true. We start out, we don't have much testosterone. 13, it hits, bam, it's a fucking rocket ship ride for the next 10, 15 years. Hang on for the rocket ship ride. Good luck. Now that when I came to my 30s, I felt the testosterone dwindling and I go, oh my God, wow, I can kind of feel like I'm kind of in control of myself again. And now that I've come into my 40s, I'm like, oh my God, wow, I'm reaching mastery over this biochemical substance, balancing it in my system, and it's going to dwindle. as I get into my 60s, 70s, 80s, right? I'm not going to be the same person. And that has a biochemical hormonal component that we need to recognize. And that happens for anybody of any gender. We have hormones and they change. We're not going to be the same. Anyway, the skill at being able to connect to the reality, the present moment, is a skill of improvisation. Yeah. Wow. It's a skill of being a good dance partner. Now, if you just like you're engaged with somebody, then you get married and you stop being engaged. Think about engagement being like active, free flowing, bi-directional flow of energy. Think of engagement like that. Most people get married and they stop being engaged.
Yeah, exactly.
And they want their person to stay, their partner to stay the same for the rest of their life. Well, they're not. They have to evolve. They have to invert. One day you might think the opposite of something that you thought before. You might flip. We have to have the ability to handle those changes. Otherwise, we're destined for failure or hurt or dissatisfaction, apathy, depression, take your pick.
I love that concept of relationship being like an improvisational dance. Mm-hmm. And so what's arising for me as I'm hearing you describe this unconditional love, quite frankly, unconditional acceptance, not that there won't be, whatever turbulence, but it's just like extending this space of just love. And I get this sense of like, your arms wide open and just allowing her to dance kind of in the space, in front of you kind of thing. So I would imagine that providing this container of safe space and trust and love and acceptance is going to do many things for her sex life. So, and your sex life together. So what is that the natural next step that you've seen, is that when men can provide this container of safety and trust and support, that her vagina lights up, that she wants to have more sex, that the sex life becomes more intimate and more amazing with more depth and more nuance?
Oh my God, yes. But I need to say, I do not teach guys to be a doormat. No fucking way. No. Absolutely not. Like, yes, I teach how to foster and create a safe space for beautiful things to unfold in our relationship, in our intimacy, in our erotic edges, in our sex life, etc. But I absolutely teach, if there's something that's real for you, a limit, a boundary, that a behavior of hers that is fucking unacceptable, and you're not going to stand for that shit. Like the ability to communicate that, but not be a jerk while you're doing it.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Right. And that gives her, when she has a firm thing, when a human being has a firm wall to bounce off of, they know where it stands. That can create relaxation because we know where you are. How many people, how many women are in a relationship with a guy and he's just like always going along with everything? He's just wishy-washy, limp rag. There's a sense of like baiting him and trying to trigger a fight that happens a lot in couples. And she's just trying to get some reaction out of him, until he finally blows up and there's a big fight. And then she knows where he is. She can feel him. So I'm teaching, be a good dance partner. Let her feel your weight. Feel her weight, and then find the delicious flow in the middle there. Then co-create your relationship there. But yeah, you create that safe space and show, let her know where you stand. Don't be wishy-washy. Don't be a doormat, but don't be a jerk. Like, it's that sweet spot in the middle there. Then, yeah, if she feels like you really get her and she can trust you, you might be the first person in her life that she's ever felt like that with. Yeah. That naturally creates an opening of the heart, and our bodies follow. The desire to have a hug when you see somebody that you love is a simple example of this. You see somebody you love, oh, you want to touch them, you want to hug them, you want to, whatever it is. The same thing in the bedroom. Like if somebody really gets you and touches a deep chord in your heart, a lot of times our sex comes online and we want to share our body and feel them inside of us or being inside of them or whatever it is. It becomes a natural expression of our feelings for each other. Then, oh my God, things that we thought maybe we would never do suddenly become possible because we want to share so deeply. Organically, it becomes a innate desire that blossoms in a terrain that maybe we've never had to be able to grow anything in before.
Mm-hmm. That's so beautifully described. And I've heard some sex educators say that like a female sexual desire is receptive. So meaning that it's not necessarily active, like we're going to go chase it, though there have certainly been times in my life where That's
Uh-huh.
not true. But like, we're generalizing here. But
Yeah.
that it's responsive. We're responding to the energy that's being presented. And I can certainly say now in my life that's so very true, is that the key to having this active, alive, like juicy, passionate sexual connection is how deeply connected I feel to my partner. It isn't about positions. It's not about the greatest new sex toy. Like, all that can be fun and games, but the actual desire for union stems from how safely I am held in his heart. And I see that, in my work, I work with couples, all around the world, and, Tantra, this, that, and the other. And the key thing that so many of us are all looking for, because it's something that hasn't been taught, is how do we connect? Because it's that connection that is the flashpoint for all of that epic sex and extraordinary love and all of that, all the shit that they talk about in Cosmo. The key point for that is the connection. With no connection, there's no fucking orgasmic enlightenment. Right? So I love that this formula is really about establishing and building and enhancing and deepening that connection before we even get into the sex skills. But because we're here, let's talk about sex. So tell me about modern sex education and the abysmal shit we've been dealing with until then.
Oh God, thank you. Okay. A lot of guys don't know about their erogenous zones. A lot of guys don't know about their fucking plumbing. A lot, they think they know it because they've watched porn and they've touched their cock their entire lives since they were toddlers or babies, but have they actually taken a class on it? Like, can you actually be a master at welding if you never took a class on welding? Just to say it. Or pick your thing. If you want to learn French, like, how can anyway, you got to study the shit. You have to actually study it. It's more of this perspective that I know everything I need to know. There's nothing I'm not already a master of. If we can shift out of that into curiosity, great. Let's learn about our plumbing. There's some amazing erogenous hotspots on our cock, on our balls, on our body that we might not know about. So learn your toolkit, number one. And then learn her toolkit. Like, it's not just this little nub of the clit. And it ain't what you see in porn. It's not the fucking pile driver. That's not what stimulates the erectile tissue hotspots inside of her plumbing the best way. It's just not. There are certain times in her like arousal. I'm going to call it a cycle in the evolution of her arousal where a really deep dicking, let's say it that way, a really deep fucking feels amazing. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But not always. That is a certain phase or time frame or part, let's just say part of her arousal evolution during any, let's say, sex night or something like that. But there's other times where it doesn't feel good. Her cervix might be low. You might be banging into her cervix. And if any guy has had a proctologist stick his finger up his ass to test the size and softness or hardness level of your prostate, that guy's going to know what it feels like afterwards. And it doesn't feel good. And I tell guys, yeah, it's probably like that. I don't know. I've never had a cervix, but I can imagine, because there's similar deep internal structures that are both sensitive. Imagine getting your fucking prostate rammed repeatedly by a rod. Oh, I just want to like curl over and kind of protect myself and guard. Anyway, so understanding what happens biologically and physiologically inside of the female genitalia, let me just be medical for a moment, like empowers us to work with what's natural and biological in ways that create more pleasure and less pain, right? They create more opening. Like if you go to a massage therapist who studied massage therapy for 5 minutes, the quality of the massage is going to suck. If you go to a massage therapist who's gone to a 2,000-hour training program and has been practicing for 10 or 15 years, the quality of touch is going to be amazing because they listen to your tissue. They let your tissue guide them rather than them driving in this masculine, like, I know what to do. I'm the expert kind of way. No. So guys, as we learn the internal structure of the G spot, that it's not actually a spot. It's actually a tube. It's a sleeve around a tube, kind of like a penis is a sleeve around a tube. We got the urethral tube and the cock is a penis, is a sleeve around it. It's a similar kind of thing. It's a maybe inch or two long tube sleeve inside the vagina on the anterior side, the front side close to the belly button. And you can massage the whole length of it. with 2 fingers. Oh my God, that's way better than just one finger up there bouncing.
Yeah.
Okay. And it leads back towards the front side of the cervix. And there's a spot on the front side of the cervix called the A spot, or the AFE, the anterior fornix erogenous zone, if you want to get medical again. And that spot is known to often produce rapid, abundant lubrication, even if the woman's not physiologically aroused yet. So if you're like perimenopausal or menopausal and you're having troubles with lubrication, it's good to know about that spot. Right. And then there's another one that's between the vagina and the anus on the backside, but it's inside the vagina and you access it from inside. And there's one on the deep past the cervix, which is the one that loves getting pounded in doggy style when she's fully aroused and her cervix pulls up to get out of the way so the cock can really get all the way in there. There's so much to learn. And if you don't know the roadmap, you're shooting in the dark.
Exactly. And you can't cultivate any type of mastery if you don't know the machinery that you're working with. And so what I'm hearing is this formula that you've developed, these 5 pieces kind of work on, like they work from the outside and then move more deeply into union, move more deeply into intimacy. And so by creating this container and this attitude of curiosity and exploration, then when you move into the sexuality, it isn't this huge pressure like I have to know everything. You can actually explore and stop and ask questions and check in. And it can be this like dynamic, fluid dance and play, as opposed to this project where you have to make her come.
A lot of guys, I identify that a lot of guys get their ego identity defined by whether or not they can make her come, which is why women fake it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the man because I'm going to make her come. Like, I can make her come. Well, she might be faking it, dude. You don't know. That's the thing. You don't know, but she can't really fake her lubrication. Yeah. She can't really fake panting and telling you, oh my fucking God, she can't fake her heart rate being up through the ceiling and her just like grinding the hell off on you. She's not faking that stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so it's part of this also is like learning these sexual skills, mastering these sexual skills after you've mastered the relationship skills and the communication skills allows you to anchor all that sexual pleasure back into the foundation of your relationship. And you imagine you tuck point the foundation of your relationship, you build up these little spots that are leaking and you fill them in, you build this huge, strong foundation that can handle tsunamis and hurricanes and earthquakes and stuff like that until eventually it's unshakable. And then you're like, oh my God. And imagine having a partner who's engaged with your sexual evolution. And long term, you get to bring out, I'm changing. This thing's interesting to me now. That thing's interesting to me now. It's to have an engaged partner who loves you and wants to give you pleasure for your life. That is a huge blessing. Sex can be so fulfilling. It can fill our creativity. It can reset us when we're stressed out. The world, possible war, pandemic, whatever you might be worried about, economy collapsing, all this shit in the world, like all these stressors, school, masks, like the vaccines, all this stuff. It can really make us frantic, right? But a single person who can touch your core and ground you in, as you said, orgasmic bliss has the power to bring you back to your body and make everything okay. And to have that in your home or like in your life, let me just say it that way. Oh my God, that's kind of what everybody wants. They want that touchstone in their lives. So there is a way to get there. There is a way to learn the skills necessary to be able to deserve that and be able to keep it. Like it's one thing to win the castle, like imagine medieval warfare. It's one thing to win the battle, to win the castle, but it's another thing to have the skills to keep that castle.
Amen.
Long term. You might win her heart. You might fuck her really good, but can you keep her interested and open to you for 20 years, 40 years? Can you keep the castle? That's what I'm talking about here.
Wow, I love that. Can you keep the castle? So what have you seen? What are some of the results that you've seen, client stories, in when men take this on and do these 5 steps and practice them? What are some of the things you've seen?
Well, the most common thing sexually is moving from a place of feeling out of control to a place of feeling like God.
Wow.
Feeling God fill him, which is different, totally different, to feeling like his capacity to give sexual pleasure in an attuned way is infinite.
Wow.
Infinite.
Well,
You're not worried about coming anymore. If you come, it's great. You keep going anyway. Maybe not with your cock, but maybe with your cock. I'll just say, like, I've been practicing this stuff for my whole life, and now I can have an orgasm, and I don't have to wait through a refractory period, which is usually like 5 minutes to half an hour for a guy where his penis goes limp before he can have intercourse again. I just keep going. Like, I give me a moment, 30 seconds to breathe, because oh my God, that was fucking amazing. Like, I want to just experience it for a moment, but then let's keep going.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like then the feeling of confidence that I experience because of my real world ability to please my partner and not diminish or wilt or fade is absolutely life impacting. Like it impacts everything. It's authentic confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just confidence because I had a great one night stand or some other thing. Like I've got a big dick, so therefore I'm confident or something like that. No, it's confidence because I really tap into this infinite power. So sexually, that's the thing that the guys tell me about. And they're like, oh my God, this is revolutionary. I never knew this existed. They never see it. It's not in porn. It's not in movies. You don't see it. If you don't see it, how can you conceive that it exists? But then from like relationship perspective, the guys, they stop being doormats. They stop being this kind of wishy-washy guy who's trying not to be part of the problem, but also can't stand up for what he really wants and feels in the relationship. Yeah. That also is very confidence building, very inspiring. And a lot of times that causes the relationship causes them to break up because he realizes he's selling himself short.
Yeah.
So I don't teach guys that you got to make the relationship you're in work. I don't know. She might be a dysfunctional bitch, but learn yourself, have your own standards, be able to communicate them in a loving way without being a jerk, and then try to elicit out from her what's hers, and then see if there's common ground there to really form a juicy sexual long-term relationship.
Yeah. And that's a really important piece that you bring up about the doormat thing. And also, that's in, in the realm of psychological abuse and domestic violence and that sort of thing, is that when we're in relationships that tend to not have boundaries, and then we decide to start setting boundaries, that very often that can mean the disintegration of the relationship, because the person that you're in relationship with doesn't actually want a boundaried partner. They want someone that will engage with them in the previous way. So I love that you brought that point out. It's very salient that just because you're using these methods, that doesn't always mean it's going to be a happy ending with that relationship. It may mean that relationship needs to end so that you can open yourself up to something that's going to be more healthy and constructive. So this has been amazing. Thank you so much, Chris. You've been through many twists and turns and up and downs. It was a tough one. But your work just sounds really, really accessible and very practical and very necessary for men in this society to have some support in cultivating and developing healthy long-term relationships rooted in communication. So I love that. So tell us more about your book and where people can get a hold of it.
Oh, thank you for asking. Mm-hmm. This is really just a passion project for me. I'm not making any money on this. My book is called Conscious Cock, and it literally means dick. It means penis, but it also means rooster. And I was searching for a long time to try to find an archetype for masculinity in the world. And all I could come up with was like Captain America and Superman. But when I thought about an animal metaphor, like the rooster really came out to me. He's powerful. He's got beautiful plumage. You can hear his crow. His voice is clear. It transfers for miles. Anyway, so like there's this double entendre there. But I'm censored on a lot of search results. Like if you search me on Amazon, I won't come up. Although my book is available on Amazon, I don't come up in the search results. So if you go to consciouscock.com, my website, you can get the book there, audiobook or ebook. Audiobook's great because you can listen in your headphones in privacy. And then there's tons of free downloads, lots of worksheets on how to make your sex life better with your partner, or conversation starters, or make your relationship better, et cetera, in the free download section. But yeah, just consciouscock.com. That's the gateway.
Yeah. And then can people find you by Googling Kristopher Lovestone as well if they want to work with you personally? Or do you offer coaching, one-on-one, workshops, groups, that sort of thing?
COVID's really just redefined the landscape. So I'm not doing coaching anymore. I'm just teaching and doing classes and interviews like this.
Yeah.
But I like to post lots of free tips and stuff like that. So people can
Yeah.
sign up for a
Okay.
mailing list if they want to, etc.
Okay, beautiful. So consciouscock.com. Look it up. Make sure you have your child blocker off your your browser to search for that. Thank you so much, Kristopher. It's been delightful to connect with you, and I wish you much, much success. And for all you listeners out there that resonate with his work and want this beautiful, I love that 5. We work with 5s as well. That 5-step plan to support you in cultivating a rich, juicy, passionate, and healthy long-term relationship. Please go to consciouscock.com and find out more about it. Make sure that you stay tuned and stay connected to Sex is Medicine in between shows at Authentic Tantra on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those good places, and sign up for all our free juicy stuff at authentictantra.com. Also, just putting it out there that we do have a Tantra Healing for Black Men program coming up. It's launching November 2nd. So you can find out more about that at Tantra Healing for Black Men. That is a Tantra healing program designed by Black people for Black men specifically. And we have Brian Craig and Karen Craig as our lead instructors for that amazing event. Again, tantrahealingforblackmen.com. Have a beautiful night. We'll see you next week, everyone. Bye-bye.